Many of you might question why YouTube bans certain channels for a period of time, such as Alex Belfield's Voice of Reason, Charlie Veitch, and many other creators with whom you might be familiar. Well, that's because whilst YouTube does adhere to the law when it's required to do so, such as keeping illegal content off its platform, which is blatantly obvious that it shouldn't be hosting illegal content, YouTube does also have and has always had a set of community guidelines which sets out the type of content that they want on YouTube, which is not just limited to the video, but it also extends to the comments, the links, the thumbnails, the title, and anything else that goes along with the video. For example, if a video by itself was perfectly fine and there was nothing inherently wrong with the video, but perhaps say the title was something that YouTube doesn't approve of, then YouTube might impose a ban on that channel or simply remove the video. Equally, my interpretation of YouTube's terms and the community guidelines is that even if there's nothing wrong with the video and the title and the thumbnail, however, the video invokes lots and lots of vicious comments and arguments within the comments section, then YouTube, in my view, would be perfectly entitled within their terms and conditions to put limits on the comment section or even the video itself. YouTube's guidelines themselves say we enforce these community guidelines using a combination of human reviewers and machine learning. In other words, the algorithms, the computers are making these decisions by themselves, and they sort of get better at it as time goes on because they learn the patterns and behaviors of users that interact on the platform with which YouTube takes issue. The terms go on to say that YouTube applies these to everyone equally, regardless of the subject or the creator's background, political viewpoint, position, or affiliation, with the ultimate goal being to make YouTube a safer community while still giving creators the freedom to share a broad range of experiences and perspectives. So before I dive a little bit deeper into the types of areas that this covers, this generally means that creators could put up a video, which is perfectly normal, but if it sparks particular arguments within the comment section, YouTube is first of all going to take action against those commenters, usually by simply hiding the comments in the first place, but doubtless YouTube also takes action against certain videos and against certain channels just because of the discussion or the inherent nature and argument sparked by any such video. There's a whole library, if you will, of different areas that YouTube looks at when deciding these things, and they include areas such as spam and deceptive practices, sensitive content, violent or dangerous content, or regulated goods such as firearms. YouTube also takes action against misinformation, or what could at least be perceived to be misinformation, and particularly and notably in relation to COVID-19 medical misinformation, which now has its own subcategory within the misinformation category. Under spam and deceptive practices, YouTube's guidelines talk about fake engagement. You may have seen lots of different comments talking about crypto investments and all kinds of other nonsense, which I've found within my comment threads, and I've removed some of them. You guys, some of my moderators have removed some of them, and indeed I'm sure YouTube takes action against lots of them that I don't even get to see or need to see before they even pop up. Impersonation is another area. Indeed, I've experienced this, and many other larger YouTube creators have experienced impersonation. That is where someone sets up an account with your name and your icon, and it looks a little bit like your channel, but it's obviously not your channel. It's not me. That's why YouTube, for the larger channels, such as humbly with my channel, they have verified my channel. So if I make a comment, you'll see a tick next to my comment channel name. Therefore, you know the comment has come from me, and you know it's an authentic interaction and not someone impersonating my channel. Equally, you will have seen in some of my recent videos and posts that someone has essentially stolen one of my videos and they're using it as an advert, and they've even stolen my channel icon and suggesting that there is free advice following on from the video, which gives the impression that it's me giving this free advice, and it isn't. There is no association between me and that company whatsoever. And just for a short update on that, solicitors have sent a letter to them, so if they don't respond, we'll be going to court, and it's as simple as that. YouTube also looks at external links to examine what other websites the channel and the videos are linking to, and takes particular emphasis on things like spam and deceptive practices. And when it comes to sensitive content, the guidelines also look at child safety, the thumbnails, nudity, sexual content, suicide, and of course vulgar language when deciding whether or not to take action against a particular video or against a channel in respect with the community guidelines. And some of the areas that I'm particularly interested in are those that cover harassment and cyberbullying and harmful and dangerous content, because there is a definitive overlap with the way the law looks at harassment as against freedom of speech. For example, in law, if one person says something which someone else finds alarming and distressing, but is not overly grotesque in nature or not a direct threat, the law will not necessarily see that as harassment, whereas many platforms, including YouTube's guidelines, may well see that as harassment and may well take action against a video because of said comments. But of course, this is not to be confused with it being a crime. It's not necessarily a crime because the law would probably require very much more for it to become a crime than perhaps one of these platforms to want to keep it off the platform. For example, the YouTube guidelines provide certain examples of what content you should be careful of as against what there should be exceptions for, and it details some examples in these guidelines. By way of example, the guidelines say if you are posting content, don't post content on YouTube if it fits in any of the descriptions noted below. And these include content that features prolonged name-calling or malicious insults such as racial slurs based on someone's intrinsic attributes. These attributes include protected group status. That's what in the UK we would draw from the Equalities Act 2010. It is a set of protected characteristics. It includes things such as gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, disability, age, and so on. Also, content uploaded with the intent to shame, deceive, or insult a minor. A distinction made there with a minor as opposed to a fully grown adult who should be able to take some kind of naming and shaming, perhaps. There are some exceptions listed within this section, which says that debates related to high-profile officials or leaders, for example, CEOs or high-profile people such as celebrities or people in charge of large companies and corporations, appears, according to the guidelines, to fit within one of these exemptions. Of course, scripted performances that are made within the context of an artistic or satire, stand-up comedy, satire of course using irony or exaggeration or ridiculing someone to expose and criticize someone being stupid. But again, YouTube notes that it would take a harder line on content that is maliciously insulting someone based on a protected characteristic, regardless of whether or not they're in a high-profile position, and quite rightly so. Another subcategory within the violent or dangerous content category is that of hate speech. Now, in law, it's not generally an offence to say that you hate somebody of a particular characteristic or particular group. Whilst it's not very nice, there's not necessarily a crime there, unless it amounts to harassment, and unless, for example, it is inciting racial hatred or inciting someone else to take actions against said person or against a said group and things of that nature. However, on the YouTube platform, it says quite clearly, hate speech is not allowed on YouTube. We remove content promoting violence or hatred against individuals or groups based on any of the following attributes. And that could be age, caste, disability, ethnicity, gender identity, expression, nationality, race, immigration status, religion, sex or gender, sexual orientation, victims of violence, or veteran status. And that's quite a wide range of things. So if someone were raising hate speech against any of those groups, YouTube guidelines say that this is not allowed on the platform. So if I were guiding anyone who are producing that kind of content, I would say defer back to what is clearly satire and what clearly could be accepted within the previous section I talked about, such as scripted performances, which include stand-up comedy, scripted satire, so long as it comes within the context of artistic medium and is clearly done in the name of comedy. So I make this video because I've read many comments about people questioning why certain content is taken off YouTube and why certain actions are taken against creators and channels whose content you may enjoy watching. And ultimately, the overarching point is that YouTube is a private platform. It is not a platform that must allow free speech. It is a platform that can and certainly does implement its own guidelines to control and in many cases restrict the content that it allows on the platform. So please give this video a big thumbs up if you like the content. Remember to subscribe, and thank you for watching.